So, what is our way forward as a party? We demand forthwith that the government should stop this relocation. We demand that the government should repeal, as a matter of urgency, Statutory Instrument 50 of 2021 and Statutory Instrument 51 of 2021. But more than that, we argue that the government should, as a matter of urgency, repeal the Communal Lands Act. The Communal Lands Act was passed by the government of Zimbabwe in 1983. But when you look at it and you read it, it is worded exactly, literally word for word, with the Tribal Trust Lands Act that it repeals. The Tribal Trust Lands was passed by the colonial regime in 1931, the same year that was passed the Land Approachment Act of 1931, which took away black people and placed them in tribal trust lands, Maruzeva, communal lands. It stripped black people of their land, and even those tribal trust lands, they were not given in trust to traditional leaders, to chiefs. They were given not in trust to the president. They were given to the president. The sitting president was given ownership of tribal trust lands. I was reading the act this morning. I thought it would say the president is holding tribal trust lands in trust. It doesn't even say that. So the president of the day can literally treat tribal trust lands or communal lands as his private property, as this one is doing, taking away land and giving it to his cronies. So we demand that there must be an immediate repeal of the Tribal Trust Lands Act, now known as the Communal Lands Act, so that land vests with the people, so that villagers who have stayed in lands for thousands of years are actually given that land. We say in our blueprint, our manifesto of 2018, the SMART document, that everyone on land in the communal lands, which measure 19 million hectares across the length and breadth of Zimbabwe, should be given a certificate of title on his rural land, which is tradable, which can be hypothecated, i.e. you can take it to a bank and borrow on it. Which means that you cannot be dispossessed of your land without compensation. Which means that you will become subject to protection of the property rights provisions of the Constitution, in particular Section 71 of the Constitution. It is absurd 41 years after independence that a rural farmer, a communal farmer, and all of us have rural homes, you actually don't have rights to that land. That land is not even being held by the president in trust. It's being held by the president in his capacity as a president. This is atrocious. This is unacceptable. Secondly, the right to consult must be entrenched in the law. If there's a developmental project in the national interest, the people must be consulted. One chief said there must be a referendum in this community, on this land, because you simply can't just wake up in Harare, walking up on the wrong side of the bed and say, I'm taking away 12,000 hectares or 21,000 hectares. So the affected individuals must participate in a referendum. Are you for this development project? Does it actually benefit us? The right to be heard, the right to consult is part of our constitution. Section 68 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe says no action should be taken against an individual without that individual having been heard. In Latin, they call it the aut alteram partem rule. So here you have a law that says you don't need to consult anyone. You simply need to consult the local district council. And that's it. And this is what actually happened in this case. That's clearly unconstitutional. But for a party that purports and calls itself a liberation movement, this is pathetic and absolutely unacceptable. Third, given the uneven and unequal development that we saw in Chirezi, in Chilonga, in Malipati, in Bole, it is our submission that devolution laws must be expedited in this country so that these communities can have self-governance. They feel excluded. So pass the devolution laws so that these people can exercise self-governance over their own over their own resources. Next, we feel that the national question need to be re-examined in Zimbabwe. And we suggest that an inclusive body be set up to actually look at the national question in Zimbabwe. What does it mean, as I asked before, what does it mean to be of Nguni extraction in Zimbabwe? To be a Tonga, to be a Ndau, to be a Shangani, to be a Tsonga. What does that mean to be in Zimbabwe? Because there's so much exclusion, there's so much alienation, there's so much reification, there's so much abuse of ethnic minorities in Zimbabwe. They were talking about schools with being taught by people that can speak the local language, Shangani. They were talking about pastries that are a disaster because the teacher doesn't understand the customs of the communities. So the issue of integration, the issue of resolving the national question is a disaster. Finally, and to conclude, what is happening in Chilonga is a price that Zimbabwe is paying for the crisis of illegitimacy that is arising and that arose out of the 2018 election. If we had a people's government, no people's government would do what Mr. Mnangagwa is trying to do in Chilonga. You can't take away land and give it to your buddies, to your cronies. You can't take away crony capitalism to this level. So Zimbabwe needs to resolve the political question. We need to resolve the crisis of illegitimacy to avoid what is happening in Chilonga. And of course, we, the people of Zimbabwe, we have decided to exercise our right to dissociation with the product known as dairy. So the communities, they appreciated the stance we have taken, that we have dissociated ourselves with the product known as dairy. They were so happy when we said, from now onwards, we're all drinking dairy boat. No to dairy, no to dairy. I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Kesile, Vice President. Any questions from the members? Any questions? No further questions. Move on.
My question is the government really aware or unaware of the context in which you place these displacements? Is the government aware that people are feeling this way? Is the government aware that all that they are doing is going back to 1830? Is the government aware?
The second one?
The local MP for the area said consultations were done and the villagers are willing to move. From your statement, you are saying there was no consultation that was done. So, which is which now?
Clearly, there was no consultation that took place. The communities there are very clear. They're very clear. They don't want to move. They don't want to move. And it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. Why would you want to move from where your roots are? They've built houses and so forth. And one of the things that I noticed about their structure, unlike in Dotito and Chendambuya, where I come from, they actually built, most of the time, hard rock, brick and mortar houses. So you can't abandon that infrastructure. Remember, they've got thousands of kids in South Africa who send money. So the government definitely did not consult. And we challenge the government, ask for a referendum there on the people, and you see the result. It will be overwhelming. It's clear they don't want to move. And in fact, they said, look, we don't even want aid from you. Just leave us with our land, because they are successful sorghum producers. Literally each household has got cattle, and literally every household has got amazing goats and pigs that roam around. So the per capita income of that community, compared to places such as Machonari and Central, Mat North, Mat South, should be very high, should be higher, because they're able to do their things. They're able to do their farming. So their attitude was that, oh, leave us alone, and we also leave you alone. Don't disturb us, because we've learned to cope with your isolation, with your exclusion. Yvonne, I think this government knows, and they know. In fact, we were told of delegations that actually went to see Mr. Mnangagwa. And Mr. Mnangagwa gave them guarantees that they will not be moved, but in fact, they will actually benefit from the irrigation of 2 Gimkos, but that they will have to pay, and there's no problem that they will have to pay for the irrigation infrastructure. They were very clear. They were given assurances. So, which is why they kept on saying, but look, we find certain individuals, the same individuals who were involved in Bukurawundi, who were involved in the mess in Marangi, and the displacement of people there to Transao and so forth. We are now finding the same individuals there, here. And when they were speaking, they said this white man came. The white man came and his colleagues, the Kosia, the Denderi people. And these people were saying, we were not sent by the government, we've been sent by the president. So they locate this in the office, in the door, in the kitchen, in the bedroom of Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. They were very clear that, look, we locate this in an individual, not in the state, not in an institution. So to answer your question, Yvonne, the regime knows, the regime is indifferent, the regime doesn't care. But what else can we expect from a government presided over by Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa?
Kesile, blessing.
Yes, my question is, have you tried to look at the developmental side of this move that government is trying to push? That maybe the people of that area would probably benefit.
Second one.
Your address touches on the geopolitical part of the things. When people now saying we are better off being returned to South Africa or Mozambique. If you try to interrogate this aspect and how South Africa can be involved in this whole issue.
Yeah, they told us that, and we've got this on camera. They told us that, look, if you don't want us, we people of Nguni extraction, if you don't want us, then take us back to Mozambique, take us back to South Africa. Now, obviously, as a Zimbabwean, I'm total against the excision of a group of Zimbabweans to another country. And I think that the South African government would say no as well. Zimbabweans must be integrated, which is why I said, please enact the laws dealing with devolution. Please, let's deal with the national question. Let's have a national commission of inquiry run by the church to actually investigate the national question. As I said before, what does it mean to be a Ndawi in Zimbabwe? What does it mean to be a Kore in Zimbabwe? What does it mean to be a Tonga in Zimbabwe, to be a Kalanga in Zimbabwe, to be a Shangani in Zimbabwe? These questions need to be answered. But that Zimbabweans who have got their roots here, who have got their umbilical cord here, can be relocated outside the country. It breaches international law. It breaches our constitution. Chapter 3 of our constitution is very clear about what a Zimbabwean is. Someone born here or born here by parents or grandparents of Zimbabwean extraction. These are Zimbabweans who have been here since 1830. These are Zimbabweans who have been in this country for over 491 years. They are no better than you. After all, the majority of Zimbabweans here came as late as the 2nd century. So all Zimbabweans here basically, except the original, San Khoikhoi people, the Bushmen, all of us here came at a certain level of time, just different in time. We all came from somewhere. So no one has got a bigger claim than the other because your ethnic tribe or grouping came before the other one. So which is why this nonsense about tribal exclusion is what it is, absolute nonsense.
Last round.
There's no development. It's grass. It's grass, and these people are experts grass. Small grains are grass. So these people know grass. Grass is not developmental. If you are talking about building factories, beneficiation, this is agriculture with the same false accumulation model, which is why the communities were asking, but we've been growing grasses for centuries. Maize is a grass, rapoko is a grass, sorghum is a grass, millet is a grass. Why don't you subcontractors as Delta is doing to us? So this is not about grass. And what kind of grass requires 12,000 hectares? What kind of grass? And if you have been in those communities that are blessed, They are expansive pieces of Inyika. They are expansive pieces of land. Why do you need all that land to do what? And one of the problems which we are facing in Zimbabwe is underutilization of land acquired during the land reform program. This regime is boasting about a harvest, a bamba harvest this year. At most, if we do well, it will be 2,000 hectares. Little Malawi, which has got half the land, which doesn't put not even a quarter of the resources that we put on command agriculture, we produce 3.2 million tons of meat. That's a bamba harvest. Now you're talking. So we'll produce maybe 1,800 tons, maybe 2,000 metric tons, but because the government is desperate of success, it is going to call it a bamba harvest. But why can't we produce 4,000 metric tons? Because 3/4 of the land is idle. 3/4 of the land is not being used. So if 3/4 of the land of 15 million hectares of land that was acquired during the land reform program is not being utilized, why doesn't Mr. Den Derry go to all those farms that are not being used? Half of the people that were given land right now are leasing them. They're subleasing them to white people at 7% or 10% of the gross output of that land. You know that. Mashonaland West is the most affected province. They are now landlords instead of farmers. So if Mr. Den Derry wants to do his grass, he must go and lease land in Mashonaland West. I can even point him to some of the farms that are not being utilized. So this has nothing to do with development. It's extraction. This government, since 2017, is anchored on corruption. In 7 commanding heights of corruption. There is fuel, there is the US dollar, there is command agriculture, there are minerals, there are subsidies, there are buses, there is land itself. So it's a regime founded on corruption. It has taken corruption to another level. This is what it is all about. And the communities, they are not fooled. They know exactly what is happening and why it is happening.